In this video, we'll be looking at how the Wedoo statements app work. Wedoo have developed a localization in terms of printing the statements for Australia and New Zealand region. So let's go through it and see how it works. For starters, once the app has been installed, we need to provide the users with the correct security settings so that they can either view the statements or they'll have the ability to send the statement. So if you go into settings under users, if you choose a user in here, right under the accounting area, you'll see there is now a statements option that comes through. And in here, we can specify which users can view the statements and which users will have the rights to send the statements. So that's one setting. There are some more settings that we need to get it to work. So I'll go into general settings in here on the top. And in here, let me search for statements. What you'll see is there is a bunch of options that gets displayed in here under customer statements. So when you look at customer statements, these are the settings in here are what that will drive what the statement will look like, and also a few other options. So let's go through these options. The first option is what is the type of statement you are going to be sending. We are going to be sending either open items or a balance forward. Now, majority of you know what an open item is, but just to explain, an open item statement will only print unpaid invoices and unallocated credits and payments. Whereas a balance forward statement will ask for a start date and an end date, and then it will print the opening balance as of the start date, all the transactions, then a closing balance. Typically, when I get my electricity bill, the type of statement that I get is typically a balance forward statement, or even a bank statement for that matter is actually a balance forward statement. And in some cases, I do get open items just to reflect the invoices that are still open. So yep, that's the setup in here in terms of how you want the statements to be computed, i.e. open items or balance forward. Few other options, if I move towards the right hand side column, now what these things do is they add or remove columns based upon our selection. So in the statement, if I wanted to have a column for running total, then that will do that. Do I want me to show the customer reference? By customer reference, what we mean is when you create a sale order, we put the customer's PO number in it. That information flows from the sale order onto the invoice. So if you want the customer's PO number to show on your statement, put a tick on that. Then you've got the payment reference. That means a reference, you have told them, hey, use this reference to make the payment, and that is what will be shown in there. We have the ability to show the sale order number, the currency, a few other options in there which you can tick and see how they work, but majority of them either suppress a column or show a column. And again, one other setting in here is in terms of the aging, which is printed at the bottom of the statement. How do you want the aging to be calculated? You can calculate it either by due date or by invoice date. So that's a setting in there as well. So yeah, at the bottom, you remember that it'll print current 30 to 60 days, 60 to 90 days. So that's being driven by this setting in here. One other setting on staying on the same side is we have the ability in here to say enable statement footer. What it means is in the statement, if I want to put some notes which might be relating to, hey, please pay into this bank account so and so, or any of those sorts of things, then you can put that information in here and that will print on the statements, right? Now coming back towards our left hand side in here, we have some more settings in here, which is effectively to whom to send the statement. So we have a parent-child relationship with an Odoo. So let me just jump into the contacts area and explain what a parent, child, and a commercial children mean. So let us go through that first, then I'll come back to this particular option. So I'll just right click in here and open a new tab. And if I go into contacts, I have created a sample company here called the parent company limited. So if I just open it up, so I've got a parent company limited. So this is the company, so to speak, under which we have got two different invoice addresses. So I've got a parent company and I have a child company 1 in here and a child company 2 in here. Then these two are set up as invoice addresses against the main company. So if I go back into the contacts and if I just look for parent, you'll see that it shows me the parent company and it also shows me the individual invoice addresses. These invoice addresses on their own are what we mean by child accounts. Everything goes to the parents, but sometimes the invoice, they want the invoice to be addressed to a particular store. whereas the statement should be addressed to the parent. So in those particular cases, we can, under one account, we can create multiple invoice addresses, use these invoice addresses from our sales order and invoicing perspective, so that the invoices are addressed to the child 1 and child 2 respectively, whereas the statement can then be sent to the parent company, right? So now we understand what a child and a parent is. There is one more setting that you will notice in here called commercial children, right? So what a commercial children is, when I'm setting up the contacts in here, for some reason we have a need that I want to send the statement to the child 1 but not to the child 2. So if I did want to do that, I can come into here and I can change this from an individual to a company. That means child 2 is also a child company of the main company. So that means when I go into the parent company in here, click back again, parent company, you see that is set up as a company, right? In a similar way, if I wanted to make the child also a company so that they get a statement, then we can change it in here as well to say, hey, they are a company now and not an individual. That means they become a so-called sub-parent, for the want of a better word, right? I've changed the setting back in here. So they could become a commercial parent is what we, commercial contact is what I wanted to say. So hence, if you wanted to do that, we can send this setting to send the statement to commercial children. Right now, majority of my clients use it as no children because all these statements are sent to the parent account. But yeah, these are the other settings you do have available in case you wanted to use them. Right, now that we have set up this detail from a setting perspective, there is one other thing that if you now go into the contacts and you look at the contacts in here, you'll see there's one more field that appears in here called statements email. When do we fill that in? Now what happens is many customers, because they have started to use the OCR facilities and things like that, so they will want the email to go to accounts at so and so or OCR at so and so. But when they are sending a statement, the statements they want it to go to a different email address. On and only when you need a statement to go to a different email address, you fill it in here. If you don't put anything in here, by default, it will send it to the partner email. So you only need to fill this in where the statement to be sent email address is different to the email address where the normal invoices and things goes. Right. So we have gone through this, we have verified what this does, and I'm happy that it's going to the parent account. So I'll leave this setting as it is. Right. So now I've come into a particular contact, and if I wanted to see what the statements looks like, so under here I can print statements. So I can go print statements. The default settings that I set up will appear in here. As of what date am I printing? I'm printing an open item. If I go into balance forward, it will ask me for a from date and to date as I had mentioned, but by default I'm printing the open items, and I can hit print. Right, so that gives me that information. So if I look at what the statements looks like in here, so yes, it has got the invoice number, the date, the due date, the type, the reference, because I had put the tick on currency in the settings. So when I go back in here, you will see that the currency has got a tick in here, and hence I'm getting this column. So if you're sending it to local customers only and you don't want the currency to be shown, you can remove that particular tick. And in a similar way, you see there is running total in here. That running total is displayed because I have the tick on show running total. Right. And at the bottom you will see there is a aging also in here, and if you'll notice the note that I put against the settings, under the settings I put this note in here, that note also appears in the statement in this particular area. Right. Hopefully all of this makes sense. It says it is to whom it is going to, it is saying what type of statement it is, and it is giving the statement date in here. Now if I go into a child company, so if I go into contacts in here, because I have got set up a child company, and just to show you, I have processed some invoices against the child company. So there are 3 invoices against this child, and there is 3 more invoices against the next child in here, right? And so if I now go back to my contacts and look at my parent, I will have all of them put together, the 3 from the parent, the 3 from one child, 3 from the other child, and I've also processed some invoices straight to the parent. So this is an accumulation of all invoices that have been posted against that company account, for the want of a better word. And it is including the credit notes in here as well. So when you look at the statements in here, say it will print all the invoices which have not yet been paid, and also include the credit note which has not been applied. Right. And the aging will include the credit note aging and the and the statement aging in here as well. Right, so now I have set that up and I have looked at the details of what it looks like. I have tested and printed a few individual statements to make sure that I'm happy with what the output I'm getting. Now what I want to do is I want the ability to run statements on a bulk. Hypothetically, I have got 500, 600 customers and I want to send a batch of statements to all those customers. Right. How that works is, now I'll go into the accounting app. Under customers, you have a option called statements. I can go into statements. I'll create a new statement run and I'll give it the name in here called statements for July 31st, 24. Right. So I'm going to be sending the statements as of July just to make it easier. And then on what date do I want to send it? So I can schedule the statements to be sent at a specific date. So I can say that, hey, I want the statements to be sent today. And it can also be a date in the future. It doesn't have to be today. The reason why you have this is, say, for example, I'm the finance manager and I have the rights to send the statements. The other users do not have the rights to send the statements. But I'm going to holiday, so I can't be available tomorrow. So I want the statement to be run. My finance team have told me they will do all the bank reconciliation, finish it off today. So I want these to be scheduled to be sent tomorrow by 3 o'clock. So in that case, I can come into here, put the schedule date in here, and I can change the time to, yes, I want it to be sent by 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, whatever the case is, and hit apply in here, right? So you can schedule a statement in to be sent in the future, right? And come that date and time, it will automatically start the process. There's still some more steps to go before we get there, right? So I've got to put the schedule date in here. I have set the statement date as to what it is. By default, it will go to the end of last month, right? So that's the default date in there. The statement type, as we have discussed before, open item and balance form, by default is open item, hence it prints open item. And I don't want any children's statements, so it's got that information as well. And from an options perspective, all the options that I had ticked on in the settings by default have come in here. And again, the note is in here as well. And say, for example, if it is midwinter Christmas and I want to wish my customers a merry midwinter Christmas, then I can add more notes in here which will be applicable only for this statement run, right? So yeah, so as you can see, we can put in some notes specifically for this statement run if there is any information we need to share with our clients who are getting the statement. Now that I've sent this, few other settings in here that will have an impact is from which email address should the statements be sent. So if I just use if I'm logged in as myself and I just say schedule it as my email, it will use my email address to send. Else we can set up a specific partner with the email address to say that which is the partner's email address. Say for example, somebody say that, hey, I want it to be sent, the email should not go from my individual account, it should be going from accounts at my company .co.nz. In that particular case, you can set up a partner with that email address and use that partner to send it so that it uses the footer of the email with that particular user's settings. So and also it will use that particular user's email address to send it. Few things to remember, just to recap in here. When you're looking at the users and you look at the user profile, under each of the user, you'll see what the email signature is. So based on the account that you're sending from, it will use the email signature from that. And one other thing to probably keep in mind is in the settings perspective, if I go into the debug mode, in the settings developer mode, there is one other thing that you can potentially do if you wanted to, and that is change the wordings on the email. So if I go into technicals and go into email templates and search for one for statement, in here I'll see that there's a customer statement and it will have the wordings to say the statements are attached. If you wanted to put more wordings to say that please find the statements attached if you have any queries, blah blah blah, or anything, and any of those sorts of things you want to customize to the email in here, this is where you put in the custom wordings. Right, getting back to the statement bulk setup, I'll go back to my customers and statements and back to my July 31st statement. So I was looking at the options in here, so I'm happy with the rest of the settings in here, so this is all good. Now in here I can choose under the partners tab, I can now choose which are the users I want to be able to send, which are the customers I want to be able to send the statement to. So I can come in here, I can put by default to say that anybody who's got a total receivable of greater than 0, that means anybody who owes me money is where are the people to whom I am going to be sending the statements. But some people say, hey, but I also want to send statements to customers who have got credit balances, because this is only going to send them that when they have a debit balance. Not a problem. You just say it's not equal to 0, and that will then include everybody who's got a balance irrespective of debit or credit. But most people, as I know it in here, send it for the positive balance customers. They come in here, there's a filter. And if I wanted to include only certain customers with a certain group or a flag or anything, I can come into new rule in here, and I can choose that particular field in here and put a filter for that if I need it, right? Say if I wanted to only send the statements for people in New Zealand, in that particular case I can come in here, I can come country, and country contains, I can type in the word New Zealand for example, and use that as a filter, right, if I wanted to. So you'll see that these are the customers who match that particular filtering condition that I put. But let's keep things simple. I'm only going to be sending it for anybody who's got that balance greater than 0. So I can come into here and I can hit the button called fill partners. Okay, and this will give me a check to say, hey, this will bring all the partners. Are you sure? We go okay. And what this will do is it will populate the list at the bottom to say that who are the users, who are the customers who are going to get the statement. The status is currently in draft, and that it is reflective of what the status in here is. So I've created the statement, I've done all the checks, everything looks okay. I want it to be scheduled to be sent. All I need to do is click on schedule button, right? And now this is scheduled. What the system will do is under the options, there is a batch size in here. So it will batch them in lots of 50 statements and send them. Why we do it that way? Because we don't want to clog up the email system. If we try and send 500 emails in a big bulk, what will happen is the email systems tend to get clogged up. So hence we have put in a batch size in here to say that, hey, you know what, every 10 minutes send the 50 statements out, so that by X number of hours kind of thing, all the statements have gone out. So that's the setting of the batch size, which makes a difference, right? And again, if for any reason my mail server that I'm using is a different mail server for sending the statement, I can override it, but I don't have any clients using that functionality as yet, but the facility is there. Right, now that I've scheduled it, what will technically happen is it will then start to send the statements, right? Just to get to a shortcut method in here, if I go into debug mode, right, that a new send now button will also appear. This will be only appear when you're in the developer mode. For normal users, they don't see it. So they can hit on the send now button if they are in a hurry to send the statements. So it can do a send now button in here to send the statements out immediately. I don't have an email server configured in this demo database. So now that it's been put in here, what will happen is as they get sent, it will have the date and time of when it was sent, and it will also have an attachment of when it was sent. And what will also you will be able to do is when you go into the customer's account, so if I go into each contact, and if I look at the parent company example in here, under the parent company, you'll see there's a statements tab in here. So all the statements that I have either sent historically or scheduled to be sent will be visible in here. The PDF will be attached in here, and I will be able to click on this particular record and also download the PDF. If somebody says, hey, I did not get the statement for last month, can you resend it to me? Instead of running the whole statement again, you can come into here and download the PDF and send it to them as well. The other thing to notice will be once it's being sent in here, the status could sometimes be in error. If somebody does not have any email address, or the email address had invalid characters, or whatever the case might be, the status in here will show as errored rather than sent or scheduled, because typical statuses by default will either be draft, which then it has been scheduled, and if it's currently doing it, it will go into running stage, and then once it's complete, it will go to complete, and you might decide to cancel it halfway through, then it becomes cancelled. But the main thing to do is look for this column to see if there are any errors in there. If there are any errors, then we can click on the record. It will tell us what the error is: invalid email address or no email address, or whatever the case might be, right? So so that's the settings, and that's how the statements work. Thank you for your time. If any questions arise, please do not hesitate to contact the Wedoo team. Thank you.